Burada da kayıt alacağız arkadaşlar. Belli başlı kelimeleri anda cümleli olarak 50-70 kelime arasında yazacağız. 15 kelime soru varmış bak.
So I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about different systems of memory. And in fact, much of the memory that influences and guides our everyday life actually kind of hides in the background. You actually don't know that when you're using the bulk of your memory. And this is called implicit or procedural memory. This includes things like cultural and social norms. So kind of understanding how you're supposed to behave in a classroom or expecting a certain thing to happen when you walk into a restaurant. These are all things that we've learned and acquired over our years, but it's not necessarily something that we think about. Language also, in many aspects, is something that is fairly automatic and that we've acquired and use very naturally, and other learned skills such as reading or driving. These are things that might have been effortful at one time, but now they just come very easily and automatically to us. And in fact, if you actually try to describe to somebody how you drive or how to drive, it actually kind of messes you up. So these are in a lot of cases, consciousness kind of gets in the way of a lot of these aspects of implicit memory. Now, when we're talking about our memory, so for instance, people tell me a lot that their memories are bad. When people are saying, when they talk about their memory, they're usually talking about explicit or episodic memory. And these are very different from implicit memories. These are memories that have a very specific tag of space and time. These are highly personal memories usually, so this could be everything from remembering what you ate for breakfast to what you did on your last vacation, or remembering a significant birthday that you had several years ago or in the past, or just an answer to a multiple choice question on a test.
We have 10 minutes to finish this task, okay. The lecturer, the speaker talked about different. Burada önemli olan şey mümkün olduğunca büyük yani o bilimsel kelimeleri öyle söyleyeyim. Onları kayıt altına almak yani yazabilmek. Onları yazdığınız zaman cümle oluşturacaksınız. Cümle oluştururken de şöyle yazabiliriz. The speaker talk about different systems of memory. She initially said mentioned about two types of memory, implicit and procedural. Then she cited that language and reading and driving effort the general language is fairly automatic and reading and driving may seem enough for the one time, but it comes she also explicit in episode Yani mesela şu different systems of memory, two types of memory, implicit and procedural. Then she cited fairly automatic. Bazı şeyleri tamamen kopyaladım. And reading and driving may seem inevitable one time but it comes naturally. Kadın aynen böyle söyledi. She also mentioned about explicit and episodic memory where highly personal memory was discussed. Burada da bize bir şeyler anlatacak. Biz burada seçeceğiz ne olduğunu.
At the moment, med students get very few chances to practice giving injections, with very expensive imported simulation pads being shared between 20 or so students in a class. Arjun and Jag really focused on developing a product that was accessible to all students.
With the different malls right now, we have both the standard unit and the professional unit. The standard unit is for people that have access to syringes and so on and so forth. So these are usually your nursing colleges and so on. And for them, we obviously don't want to put in unnecessary material to keep the cost down for them. Our primary goal was to have something that was affordable and efficient for students. You know, being students ourselves, we knew that was important right from the get-go.
Meeting the needs and interests. Meeting. Burada da bize bir kelime, burada bunlar okunacak, biz burada kelimeleri yazacağız.
Rebuilding carbon-rich agricultural soils is the only real, productive, permanent solution to taking excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
She's frustrated that scientists and politicians don't see the same opportunities she sees.
This year Australia will emit just over 600 million tonnes of carbon. We can sequester 685 million tonnes of carbon by increasing soil carbon by 0.5% on only 2% of the farms. If we increased it on all of the farms, we could sequester the whole world's emissions of carbon.
For us to write it. For us to write it, yeah. Did she say emit? This year Australia will emit just increasing the whole world permanent. Yep.
One of the things that people have said about agriculture is that on the whole it's more labour intensive than hunting and gathering. And that's one of the reasons why people have looked to explanations which you might say are kind of coercive factors, that people have been forced into agriculture because they had no alternative. That is ultimately what may happen. But at the very beginning, it could be that agriculture was developed because people wanted special status foods for feasting, that it was actually a social need. I mean, and how much of what we do in our lives is generated by competition with others, and a lot of that is powered by desire for new things, new statuses, new whatever it might be, respect, recognition, also are important. And in small-scale societies, a lot of those sorts of factors are generated by the ability to, for instance, throw feasts. One possibility is that some of these foods that were being grown were actually intended especially as feasting foods.
Intensive, more labor in coercive, ultimately a social need, whatever it might be, respect. Ben burada burayı hiç görmedim. Generated, yep. Bu da yine aynı.
Perhaps you remember the dire predictions from the analysts. The fall-off in housing threatened to drag down the entire economy. High energy prices would put the kibosh on consumer spending. Runaway inflation was poised to take off. David Weiss is an economist at Standard & Poor's. He says in the end, none of those things happened in the final 3 months of last year.
Final. Fuck, kaçırdım. Kanal set. The last financial. Runaway inflation was poisoned in the final. Of, hiç sevmediğim bir tanesi daha. Burada da özetini seçeceğiz.
It's an idea that essentially sleep allows a homeostatic readjustment of synapses. During wake, you're bombarded by experiences, and that leads to multiple synapses being engaged and their weights being changed. And then what sleep allows, and specifically actually slow wave sleep, is a pruning back off those unimportant synapses. So it's kind of like, I imagine in some senses, the judicial pruning of your roses to get a nicer flower. So the idea is that the slow wave sleep is able to prune back synapses that are energetically wasteful, but are also wasteful in an information processing account because they're adding noise. And that clearer, crisper signal then translates into improved performance the next day.
Popularly. Bu kesin. Burada da sonunu bulmaya çalışacağız. Bu cümleyi söyleyecek, anlatacak bir şeyler.
We need a bit of stress in our lives to keep us alert, to keep us going, but we also need to have that burst of stress that then is managed and drops again. It's when stress remains high constantly that we're in real problems. And that's the real concern with the way our society is organised today, is that we put people in situations that do leave them chronically stressed.
How difficult do you feel your life is at present?
To find out if Australian families are too stressed, the longitudinal study asks behavioural science questions.
How well do you think you're coping?
In Life at One, we add some biological science. We trawl the saliva of our parents and babies for a hormone called cortisol. When we're stressed, our physical response and the emotions we feel are triggered by chemicals released in our body. First is adrenaline, providing the increased heart rate every kid needs to escape a bully. But if the threat continues, our body goes on high alert and cortisol kicks in to shut down parts of the brain.
And the things that we shut down are things like rational thinking, memories, our immune system, and a range of other things that, I guess, through evolution, our body is determined that aren't necessary to deal with the immediate trauma.
But if a child is continually stressed, constantly shutting down their memory and immune system can seriously affect the way their brain grows.
Ne diyor? Long periods of stress by young children results in a lost memory. No, these are proper levels of cortisol in the brain. No, leads are different function not necessary for immediate survival being shut down. Bu olabilir. Places too much focus on rational thinking. No, leads an increase in the amount of saliva produced. No, kesin bu. Burada da bize söylenecek bu kelimelerden birisi sonundaki kelime.
That's how they entered. And when they start selling seeds, they sell hybrid seeds. They don't sell open pollinated varieties that farmers can save. And they never tell the farmers, you can't save the seed. Farmers then plant out the hybrid next year and have very high rates of...
Probably crop yield. Çiftçilerin ne olduğunu söylüyor. Crop yield da bu galiba ne olabilir? Crop yield Türkçesi. İngilizcesini biliyorum ama Türkçesini bilmiyorum. Açıkçası mahsul olabilir. Aynen. Burada da yanlış kelimeyi biz işaretleyeceğiz arkadaşlar. En sevdiklerimden bir tanesi bu.
Nonverbal communication refers to all of the messages we send other than the words themselves. It's all the aspects we think of as body language, our gestures, our posture, the way we walk, and how close we stand to others. It also includes our facial expressions, our eye movements, the way we dress, and the way we touch others. It even includes the way we say our words, our tone of voice, how loudly we speak, how quickly we speak, and special intonations like sarcasm, mocking, or sounding absolutely bored.
Genellikle zaten 4-5 tane oluyor. 4, 5 ya da 6 tane oluyor. Ama ben genellikle böyle 5 ya da 6 tane gördüm. Bir de bir tane kelimeyi seçtikten sonra genellikle yan tarafı hemen yakınlarında olmuyor. Biraz daha uzaklarında oluyor. Hani bu böyle triklerinden bazıları.
Consumers, of course, are also keeping an eye on prices, especially at the gas pump. When gasoline topped $3 a gallon last year, many drivers lost their enthusiasm for SUVs and started paying renewed attention to MPG. Another question mark for the industry is whether consumers and policymakers will maintain that focus on fuel efficiency, with gas prices in much of the country now closer to $2 a gallon.
Kaçırdım. Sorry, consumers of course are keeping an eye on gas pump and gasoline. Yani okuyup da seçebilirsiniz aslında last year. Many drivers lost their enthusiasm for SUVs and started paying for renewed attention. MPG. Another question mark for the industry is whether consumers and policymakers will maintain that focus on fuel efficiency with gas prices in much of the country. Yeah. Kaçırmamalıydım ya.
Our director's experience of the play, Shakespeare, and theatre in general is second to none amongst drama school practitioners. The first week of the rehearsal process was spent in discussion of the background and subtext of each character, where they came from, their family, their social status. We then put each character into something called hot seating, which I'm sure you're familiar with. This is a process in which every other actor was able to ask our character a question and we answer it from our character's point of view.
Burada da bize söylenen cümleyi yazacağız.
The sociology department is highly regarded worldwide.
Highly regarded.
She used to be the editor of the student newspaper.
She used to be the editor of student newspaper. Bu en önemlisi arkadaşlar. En önemli yer bu. En önemlisi. Yani bunu ne kadar iyi yaparsanız sınav sonucunuz genelde o kadar iyi geliyor. She used to be the editor of the student newspaper.
The placement test for mathematics and statistics is offered every semester.
The placement test for statistics and mathematics. The placement test for tests for statistics and mathematics is offered every semester.
They've been struggling since last year to make their servers pay.
They have been struggling to make their service repair.